In this video, I'm going to reveal to you all the various problems with Snapchat Snap Kit. As a hobbyist iOS developer, I wanted to try Snapchat's Snap Kit. It offers an SDK where you can bring in Bitmoji, Snapchat style stickers. It has what's called Creative Kit, Bitmoji Kit. You can integrate login, Snapchat style login into your app. And as a iOS developer, I wanted to give this a try and see how it goes. What I discovered is that Snapchat and its delivery of the SDK just does not measure up. I ran into problem after problem after problem with Snapchat Snap Kit. I'll also talk about some business lessons that we can all learn by observing the mistakes that Snapchat has made with Snap Kit SDK. This is bug number 1, which makes me want to throw up. So if you look at Snap Kit's documentation and you read feedback, it says if something's not working, you got to report it to snapkit-support@snap.com. However, when you do that, you're going to get a response that looks like this. Learn more about SnapKit by visiting support.snapchat.com/news/snapkit. If you have further questions, please reach out to us at support.snapchat.com/I-need-help. Thanks. If we go to that URL, I need help, trust me, none of these choices look anything like, well, I'm having an issue with Snap Kit SDK. So, what are the issues? It tells the customer who's seeking support to look at the news blog. And then it also tells the customer if they need assistance to go to the I need help, which isn't helpful. And I already sent an email to support. So if I sent an email to support, I'd expect support, not to be told to go to I need help. This just doesn't make any sense at all. I suggest to reword it, just saying thanks, this is an automated response. What's the business lesson here? There are a few. One, when introducing a product that is somewhat outside your core product. Snapchat is an app. Snap SDK is a whole different beast. So when a company is going to offer something outside of their core offerings, it's a really great idea to review every piece of the possible customer engagements and how customers are going to interact with your company. Certainly, without a doubt, someone should have acted like a customer and done what a customer would do. In this case, what would a developer do? They would go, they'd look at the documentation, they'd try some stuff, they'd run into problems, and then they'd follow the directions that are documented, which is to send an email to support.
Bug number 2?
Bug number 2 relates a lot to bug number 1. If we go to I need help, as we just did a moment ago, you're going to see that all of the options have nothing to do with Snap SDK. You know, you can't release a product and not have obvious, clear support lines. And since other kinds of customers have been directed to the I need help page, you probably ought to add something to the I need help page for support for the SDK. Again, the business lesson here is exactly the same. If someone had actually gone through the process as a developer of trying to get support, this would have surfaced immediately. Bug number 3. Snapchat has Snapchat support on Twitter. And so I foolishly sent a message asking if this is where I ask questions about the SDK. Notice the 2 responses. The first response is a link to SnapKit. Well, that's not what I asked. I didn't ask for a link. I asked if I could get support here. And then the second response is, we'll need to look into this further. Again, these are both like auto-generated responses, and they're completely tasteless and totally put off anyone who's trying to get actual help. And did you notice the URL in the second auto response? Guess what it points to? It points to the I need help page, which we already know isn't helpful. I would argue that each of the customer-facing departments must have sign-off before a product is launched to the customer. You have to think about where your customer is coming from. How are they approaching your company? They're coming on the website. What is their experience? They're picking up the phone. What's their experience? They're tweeting to Twitter. What's their experience? They're emailing. What's the email experience? Maybe it's something in your app where you can get help. What experience is that like? You must talk to your customer-facing organizations. Definitely customer support. Sometimes even quality assurance. Get a good QA engineer to go through the customer experience, and you're going to surface a whole lot of these things that clearly Snap did not surface.
Bug number 4.
Here's an interesting one. Try to copy and paste the code that Snap has provided, and you'll get an error. That's because this code is not actually correct. The code is wrong because this is not the correct method. The correct method has a different spelling, and that's actually filed in the next bug. But bottom line is that code doesn't work. Clearly, someone didn't go through the documentation and actually try what the document says to do. It is critical to consider the documentation as just another feature of the product, just another feature of the software. The documentation is software. It should be tested just like software. Bug number 5. Let's take another look at that code gone wrong. As you can see, there are sort of two pairs of methods. There's the SC SDK Snap Photo and the SC SDK Snap Photo Content. So those kind of come together. However, that's not exactly what Snap implemented. One would think that because these are pairs, that they would be named consistently. So for example, you've got SC SDK Snap Photo. So you would think that its pair is SC SDK Snap Photo Content. And that's what the documentation person thought too, but they were wrong. In the actual implementation, you've got SC SDK Snap Photo and SC SDK Photo Snap Content. In other words, they're reversed. Now I'm a little dyslexic, and it took me a little time to see this, but clearly others would have a problem too. In my mind, this is beyond embarrassing to name these two methods like this. It's just so darn confusing. Just to prove that I'm not completely dreaming, here's the actual implementation. You'll see this says SC SDK Snap Photo. You'll see this one is SC SDK Photo Snap. The same business lesson is repeating itself over and over again. Eat your own dog food. Use your own code to write code. If someone had done that, this would have been caught. Bug number 6. If you look at the login kit documentation, immediately it starts talking about scopes. It gives you some URLs, and then it gives you some code. But this is in no context whatsoever. The actual code here is for iOS. These top paragraphs should be generic. I mean, if you look, there's a link here for login kit for iOS and another link for Android. So it doesn't make sense right up here to be talking about login kit and to be giving code that is specific to iOS. It just doesn't make sense at all. And then, if you go down here, we don't talk about scopes again until much later. Much later in here, in fact, I don't even see it yet, and I'm scrolling down and scrolling down and scrolling down. I don't know where the scopes discussion is here, but it certainly should not, absolutely should not, be the very first thing up in here. It just doesn't make any logical sense. Why are you telling me about scopes, and why are you telling me about these URLs when you're not telling me how to use them? You're not giving me anything that tells me what the hell this information is all about. Bug number 7. In getting started, it tells you that you can import the frameworks. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, you can do this you can download the frameworks and integrate them, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. What isn't noted here is that the frameworks are also available as a CocoaPod, which is a much easier way of getting the binaries into your system. This is another business lesson that seems to be repeating for Snap. Bottom line, you have to consider your documentation as if it was part and parcel of the product. And every time you have a release, you're testing the documentation as much as you're testing the release. They released the CocoaPod, but they didn't circle back on the documentation. Bug number 8. If you search for Snap Kit, you're going to run into Snap Kit. And Snap Kit is an SDK for iOS that's been around for at least 4 years and is fairly popular with iOS developers. I'm not sure why Snapchat chose to name their thing Snap Kit. When Snap Kit already existed, it's an SDK and it's for iOS. It's very confusing to have something called Snap Kit that already exists and then Snapchat comes along and calls something Snap Kit. From a business perspective, yes, I understand that naming things with a unique name is difficult. I'm just wondering, did Snapchat do a naming search? Bug number 9. Let's look at the Snap Kit portal. If we look at the Snap Kit portal, here's one of my apps. Let's take a quick look. Now, I'm going to look at this deeply on a big screen. When you look at this page on a large screen, you get something that is just really confusing. It took me days and days to figure out that there were two sides of what I was seeing. That on the left-hand side was the production app info, and on the right-hand side was the developer app info. Yes, they do have titles on them, but there's no line or anything separating them. And who expects to have some information on the left-hand side, some information on the right-hand side, and they're totally not related? One is for production, one's for development. It's just really a poor user interface and a poor design. And it took me forever to understand that the OAuth client IDs were ones for production and ones for development. And oh, by the way, Snap in the documentation doesn't call them OAuth IDs. It calls them client IDs. So you can't use the documentation when they say client IDs. You say, okay, what client ID? Bug 10. Another code-based issue for the SDK about unlinking. Now, by the way, why they call it unlinking and not logging out, I don't know. But it's called unlinking. There are two unlinking methods, and both have the same problem. And that is that you could fail at unlinking. There could be an error when logging out or unlinking. Yet, there's no error thrown. Yes, you'll see here that there's success or failure, true or false. But if this is false, your code doesn't know what to do. Doesn't have any. There's no error. There's no way of really troubleshooting this. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have something that could fail, true or false, but not throw an error. Bug 11. So there is a Snap Kit account on Twitter. If we look at the Snap Kit account, it's one of the most absurd, crazy, goofball, worst, absolutely worst marketing tool I've ever seen. Look at this. There are, 6 tweets? The first one is in June of 2018, and then there's like 3 or 4 more. And none of these are very helpful. You know, they've announced all sorts of things. They just recently released 1.1 of the SDK. There's no release announcement here. What is this for? It certainly isn't for support. I don't know who owns this, but it's baffling. Bug 12. Right, if we look at the API reference for iOS, this first sentence is really confusing. This documentation assumes you already made contact with us. I'm sorry, what contact? What am I supposed to do? The business lesson here again is to walk in the shoes of your customers and test the documentation. Bug 13. Recall that one of the issues was the automated response from support. It told you to go to the news area and also go to I need help, and of course I need help is not helpful. Well, when you get what appears to be a human, this person Chuck, who seems to be responding like a human would, I know he's using a template. What does the IP address have to do with anything? That doesn't make sense. And certainly, I might not have asked a question having to do with any of this. The first time I sent an email, it had to do with the portal. Well, none of these questions have to do with the portal. So I immediately feel like nobody in support actually read the email that I sent. And in fact, I sent an email back when I saw this. They said, could you please answer the question I asked? I think I've noted this business issue now for the 10th time for Snap. Snap. Walk the walk of your customers. Go through the steps that they would go through. Take a look at every possible entry point for your customers and make sure that those experiences are logical, friendly, and make sense. Bug 14. If you go down to the bottom of the documentation for iOS for Bitmoji Kit, you see this, it says, need an example. Find our application on GitHub. Now here's the thing. It's great to have a sample for Bitmoji, but there's no sample for anything else. This is another example of doing business wrong. If you're going to release an SDK, how about sample code for the entire SDK, not just a small part of it? Again, from the developer's perspective, my perspective, it's not really helpful to only have a little bit of demonstration code. Bug 15. Here's even more support boilerplate. Chuck at some point responds with this. We appreciate you taking your time to report this. Our team is investigating and will follow up if we need more information. Okay, from a business perspective, from my perspective as a developer, trying to have a relationship with you, Snap, this is not the way to have a relationship. Look, number one, you appreciate that I reported this. I reported this so that I get resolution to a problem. Not for you, but for me. Okay? Also, our team is investigating and will follow up if we need more information. Well, if you don't need more information, what's going to happen? I'm sorry, but this doesn't make anything clear. You're not setting my expectations. I have no idea, are you going to respond tomorrow? Are you going to respond in a week? Are you going to respond in a month? Are you never going to respond? This is just horrible communication. Really, really bad. This is yet another example where Snap fell down on their face in terms of customer service and trying to understand where their customers were going to be and the customer experience. Bug 16. Last, but certainly not least, as a QA engineer, I always felt that error messages should be clear, should be helpful, so that it can help the customer troubleshoot or help somebody troubleshoot. But that's not the case. When I executed this code, I got an error. In this case, the error that's returned is this one right here. Server responded with an unexpected status code and then a whole bunch of just garbledy-goop. I mean, how is this helpful right here? It's not helpful at all. It just, what is this? So again, from a business perspective, eat your own dog food, Snap. Try actually using the product that you built. Walk in your customer's shoes. Test, test, test. So in summary, Snap, eat your own dog food. Try all of the SDK and see if it works. Treat the documentation as if it was part of the product itself. and test it. Do you have information on the web? Do you have a news feed? Do you have a Twitter account? Where is the information on your product coming from? And wherever that information is coming from, make sure that the new product fits into that. Treat support as if it was a product and test it. Before release, make sure you walk the customer's walk. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this valuable. You can always reach me on Twitter at Bruce Bookman.